Blue Ocean Strategy. This is a strategy that is very aligned with innovation, and it's come on the scene and really taken many organizations by storm. And so we're going to look at how that works and what the notion of a blue ocean strategy really is. So the way we distinguish between a blue ocean and a red ocean, the authors of this book really kind of got into it by using the metaphor that red oceans were places where there was a lot of competition, a lot of blood in the red ocean. And so that was the notion. Blue oceans were places where there wasn't a lot of competition. Somehow you found a place that was an opportunistic area where you could be in a marketplace that wasn't really very contested. And so if you look at this left-hand column here, what happens, this is what most businesses are in today, and this is what's taught in most business schools today, is that you have to compete in the existing market space. You just simply have to be better. You have to beat the competition. You have to exploit existing demand. And you have to make value and cost trade-offs. Be efficient. And you have to align your firm activity with the choice between differentiation, which is making yourself unique and attractive and different from other competitors, and low cost. The classic low cost is the Walmart approach. The classic differentiation might be a department store, that is a specialty department store. So on the other hand, if we look at the right-hand column, if your perspective about what a blue ocean strategy would be is, instead of competing in the existing market space, you create some uncontested market space. You create that. You find an opportunity to create that. And you make the competition irrelevant because they can't compete in that market space. You've entered that market space in a way that they can't enter it. You create and capture new demand. You discover that there are new customers out there who want what you've got. And you break this value-cost trade-off. In other words, you don't have to sacrifice value by lowering your cost. You can keep your cost high. And then finally, you align the firm activity in the pursuit of both differentiation and low cost. So that's something that is unique about this. And so how does this happen? It happens when you find what we call value innovation. And you try and do four things. You try and reduce the factors that you have in your business to well below the industry standard. So that doesn't mean you have a bad product, but you look at ways in which industry standards and your other competitors are doing things, and you find ways to do them at a little less effect and a little less cost. On the right-hand side, you create new factors that the industry has never offered before. In other words, you're offering something totally new, something totally different. That's really the source of the innovation that happens. Third, you raise some of the other factors that are important to customers well above the industry standard. And you try and do that in a way that you apply some innovation or some innovative approach. And then fourth, over on the left-hand side, you eliminate those factors that the industry takes for granted. So what you want to do is, in effect, create a whole new way of looking at your product and have a whole new way of having customers see what your product or service is. So if we look at ways in which you can reconstruct these market boundaries, there are 6 ways. We'll look at 6 paths. The first path is you reconstruct from substitutes within the industries to alternatives that actually go across industries. A second path would be to reconstruct from competing within a strategic group, a particular set of competitors, to competing across the strategic group. And you're not competing just against, let's say Procter & Gamble is competing with soap makers. Instead, they are competing with soap makers and shampoo makers and perfume makers and household product makers and all kinds of other things. And so they've gone across boundaries. A third path would be to reconstruct from existing consumers to other participants in either the supply chain or the value chain. So in other words, you think you're selling to just one type of customer, but if you think about it, maybe you're selling to people up and down that value chain or up and down that supply chain in different ways. So you're not just selling, let's say, an automobile, but you're selling automobile parts to somebody who is in a different part of the value chain. So a fourth way to reconstruct market boundaries would be to reconstruct from what we call narrow products to complementary systems of products. Don't limit yourself to a single product, but have a family of products that maybe can reach a wider range of customers. A fifth path would be to reconstruct by transforming the functional and emotional meanings of your products. So some ordinary product, like baking soda, is a classic example. Baking soda can be used in so many different ways, and the Arm & Hammer people have found ways to sell that idea and that singular product in a wide variety of ways. Path number 6 is to reconstruct from a market of today to a transformed market of tomorrow. You have to look ahead. You have to think about what is it that's going to be interesting and needed for people, so you need to understand the trends that are out there. So moving from red to blue oceans. So we take each one of these paths and really play them out. Where in path 1, you look at the industry and you say there are rivals within the industries. If you have a vision that you only are competing against people within your own industry, then you're in a red ocean. If you think about it from a blue ocean perspective, you look across alternative industries and say, what is it that we're doing that might be attractive or interesting in some other industry? And you go right down the list here. Your competitive position within that group. If you look across groups and say, who is it that we're really competing with, and who might we compete with that we could compete better? And a third area, if you think about buyer groups, who are the existing buyer groups? And if you're really competing to serve within those limited range of customers, you need to redefine who that buyer is and who that buyer might be or who that customer might be. If you think in path number 4, the scope of the product that you're offering, you maximize value for the existing offerings that you've got. And so this is where you make the most of what you've got and just hope that people are going to want to buy that. On the other hand, you could bundle a range of complementary offerings and expand the value of what you're offering in a blue ocean approach. In path number 5, you can improve, in a red ocean perspective, you can improve the price and performance of existing offerings and pairings, or you could target new functional and emotional pairings of products and offerings. And in path number 6, the timing, if you are adapting to external trends, and the key word there in a red ocean is that you adapt. You can be agile and adapt, but on the other hand, if you can shape or control the trends, if you can influence those trends, then you have a much greater advantage. So this, this diagram here really shows the potential sequence of a blue ocean strategy and how you would construct it. And you start with understanding the buyer utility. Is there some exceptional buyer utility that you have? And what is it that people really want to buy? And if you don't really have that, if you don't think you have that, you need to rethink it. And you need to be able to price your offering in a way that is accessible to mass buyers, not just a narrow customer segment. You need to target the price at a way where you can meet your cost, but you might have more potential for offering it at a higher price because the value of what you're offering. And then the fourth consideration is how can you make this happen? How can you get your innovative idea out into the marketplace, out into a blue ocean marketplace? And if you can do that, you have a commercially viable blue ocean strategy. And so this is something that you want to consider as you think about ways in which you're preparing your own innovation approach, innovation strategy, innovation management approach in any organization. So what we're going to do now is look at a range of strategy canvases. Strategy canvases are ways of providing a format for comparing and identifying differences between an innovative initiative and those of existing competitors. And so what we're going to show you is a series of canvases that look at specific offerings in different industries and how they're compared along a scale or a metric of customer appeal. And each one of these things in each of these different industries has a different set of metrics about customer appeal and ways in which you can match your offering against those of your competitors. And so let's start with one that is a classic example of the Blue Ocean Strategy book, where out of nowhere, Cirque du Soleil in the blue line really came out of nowhere because there were circuses that the Barnum and Bailey and smaller regional circuses existed for years, and out of nowhere, what Cirque du Soleil did was to blend and create, in effect, the blue ocean. They combined a theatrical experience with a circus experience. And if ever you have been to a Cirque du Soleil performance, you will see how unique and different it is. It's circus, but it's also theater. And it's done in a very high-class environment. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see ways in which there are differences between circuses and Cirque du Soleil. You can see they don't have star performers, they don't have animals, they don't have aisle concessions, they don't have multiple show arenas. They have one place where they run these. And then there's a big difference in terms of the ability and the cost of offering these things, where you see the Barnum and Bailey's and the other smaller circuses are much higher cost. And then when you get over to the right-hand side, you can see that really the themes of circuses are pretty predictable and pretty low, whereas the theme of the Cirque du Soleil is always different and new and unique, and there's always some new idea almost every season of the year in every location. And so you don't have multiple productions of the circus. You have the same thing over and over again. You don't have really anything interesting in terms of artistic music and dance, but you do with Cirque du Soleil. So what you can see is the contrast here, and you see that contrast by looking at how somebody has gone into a blue ocean, that's the Cirque du Soleil, and you can compare that with competitors who are doing basically their operations from a red ocean strategy. They're competing against themselves. Now here we have an example of a strategy canvas for smartphones. And here again you can see where all these different types of smartphones, the iPhone, the Droid, and the Moto X are all compared. And so you look in the first couple of areas, they look pretty similar, and then as you get into battery life and camera capability and memory storage and custom colors, there are some differences. And so you can begin there to compare how you're different and how you really move into an area where there's something that nobody can compete with you. And here we have another strategy canvas of Southwest Airlines. And Southwest Airlines was able to be competitive, not only because they competed against other airlines, but because they solved the problem of getting from place to place by car. It's almost much cheaper to jump on an airline like Southwest to get from point to point than it is to get in a car and try and drive there. So you look at these various points at which Southwest is operating. They're cheaper with meals, they don't have a lounge, they don't have seating choices. Some of these things are not important. They don't have a lot of hub connectivity. On the other hand, they have friendly service, they have speed, and they have frequent point-to-point departures. These are all really, really important to people. So that's how they competed. They moved into a blue ocean and competed where other airlines could not compete. And here, another example, we won't go through the details of this, but this is the telecommunications industry, and it's basically in Europe, where Skype is compared with a Swiss company and Orange Mobile, which is a French company. And you can begin to see on those points on the lower axis there how they compare for each of these different factors. And some of them end up in, Skype ends up in a blue ocean strategy because it does some things that the other telephone companies can't do. Here's another example. This was one that was in the book, the Blue Ocean Strategy book, Yellowtail Wines. And this solved the problem of people's fear of not understanding what a good wine was. And they said, well, we can get at that issue by not necessarily creating high-quality snob-like wines. We can get at that issue by creating really good quality wines that are well blended. And so they put a lot of effort into blending their wines in a very drinkable way. And so they had a very wide range of customer interest in that. And they were able to be successful. They don't do what the premium wines do, and they don't do what the budget wines do. They found a niche in there that was different. It was a blue ocean niche. So here are some of the summary insights about blue ocean strategy and innovation. And moving from red oceans to blue oceans is a matter of visualizing your innovation opportunity. In other words, what can you do that isn't being done? And if you look at ways in which you can do that, you can look for innovation opportunities, and they will present themselves to you. Using this notion of value innovation, one of the diagrams that we had, as a tool, helps you identify specific areas where you can innovate. In the case of Yellowtail Wines, they innovated by blending, and they fit reasonable quality wines into reasonably drinkable wines that weren't very expensive, and they packaged them and distributed them. And so they met a niche. They did something that identified a very specific area where they could innovate. And finally, this notion of a strategy canvas helps reveal innovation opportunities. It's a great way to map out how any given organization fits or doesn't fit with its competitors.